Welcome to another day of Ether Raids. We are using the Lin team today, taking on X-Cal.
Utterly shameless.
And this one, I'm just gonna click right through this one real quick. Pretty much just to give a recap of what happened here. This was really just a test to see if Chrom could actually get through this Rhea. Yeah, I won't spoil it. Well, I don't know, it's not that long. I don't know. Well, anyway, you'll just see what happens. Essentially, what happened here was also, I don't think I'm going to be able to see another. I don't know if I'm going to be able to see another far save Rhea, and that's what this was, a far save Rhea. So I don't know if I was going to see another one for. Well, since it's the last day of the season, I don't know if I'm going to see another one for quite some time, especially since we're going into her bonus season soon, I think. It's going to be 1 Chaos and 1 Astra Anima. So I needed some data to just figure out what the matchup would be like when just attacking into her with at least Legendary Chrom or any other armor effective unit, just to see what the outcome would be like. So we got the regular enemies here for Mortis & Co. We could have went into this one with Sita, or, you know, probably even like the Chrom team, breakthrough for Mortis and take him out that way, but it really would have been like just more, I found it more beneficial just to see what the matchup was going to amount to in terms of, you know, just range armors into Rhea. Typically, range nukes into Rhea. Typically, she dies to armor effective damage like Micaiah and things of that nature. But this composition here was cleansing her debuffs and stuff like that. So it's probably like as good of a matchup that I'm gonna get.
All right. Leave it to me.
This season, and also the support that she has here is actually like really good. I think this is fantastic support for her. You're always going to get the debuffs from Micaiah, and then the sabotage from Ather as well, from Hearthvelger as well, so those guaranteed debuffs there. Penalty cleansing from Freyr, so she doesn't have to worry about that. So this is a really good setup, defensive block. And
your plan.
Yeah, we're going to get to see Chrom here. Now the wind sweep doesn't matter against dragons because for whatever reason, I don't know, you would have needed a water sweep. So that's a tech option that you could potentially bring, and also it's reducing Chrom's overall damage output. So hopefully we get an upgrade to the wind sweep skills at some point, but as you can see here, we're failing to get the kill, even though Chrom is really buffed up, or as close to as buff as he can be for this team. The only thing that he doesn't have is the support from the status buff supports from Veil there, but yeah, 99 times 4, and it's not getting the job done. The blue feud is helping because of the support that Rhea could potentially get from Athos, so it does help in that regards, but yeah, we're still missing the kill, and really,
you have my all.
At this point, I was really confused because it was looking like so much damage in the forecast, and I think also what I didn't take into consideration is the fact that she was probably killing Chrom
like
before
fun.
he was able to get the, well, actually no, desperation. So that wasn't a factor. So she was just taking all 4 hits and just not dying, which is crazy. So at this point, I was really like, this isn't going to work. So I was going to have to wait another turn because of positioning. What I wanted to do was try to break the Hathrin debuff, the Hathrin flat damage reduction for the first combat, just to see if Chrom could then get it. But I couldn't figure out how to get up there on this turn, so I figured I'd give it one more turn and then see what the outcome would be like. But then I was kind of worried about what would pop out of the circle there, in terms of if it was like a Setith or something, and you know how that would impact the actual calculation of what's going on here. I was trying to get the full effects out of the blade session, but the more I tried, the more buffs I gave to Chrom, she just wasn't dying. And ultimately, you know, just going through it, I kind of realized what's happening here is that she is taking all 4 hits, and the miracle is proccing on the last hit, and she's just healing 7 HP afterwards. So we move now to turn 3. This is a setup for turn 3, trying to get as much buffs on Chrom as possible. Celica has popped out, and we're going to try to see what the damage forecast is going to be this time. Fully buffed Chrom, popping the reposition here to get the bonus doubler, as well as I think he gets one other effect if I'm not mistaken. No, it's probably just the bonus doubler, my bad. So we're going to pop that. As you can see, without cleansing his penalties, even though he does have penalty cleansing, but you know, he doesn't get the visible stats for the bonus doubler to matter. And there you go, you see the big swing in stats. It's interesting here because this isn't like a super buffed Rhea. You can probably figure out, like, you could run Ather here. You could have run Ather, the mythic version, and get extra health and defensive bulk, or is it res? One of the two on her. Just for more stats, and it would have made her a little bit more difficult to kill. But for his team composition, he probably wanted to go with another range unit. So we went to the final attempt here, or the final addition to the puzzle, which was to give Chrom more stat buffs. Still the same outcome. So with all of the support that I can give to Chrom, Thor there and everything, it's just not enough. Even though it says 99 times 4, it's not getting the job done. So ultimately, I just decided to just throw away Lynn since she's not doing anything here, and then see if we subtracted the flat damage reduction from Hathorn's support, if Chrom would have been able to get the kill at that point. The plan was to clear this. It was really down to whether or not Chrom could get the kill. If Chrom could get the kill, then we could take out Hearthvelger, and then we could figure out the rest from there, because Hearthvelger was the only one that had a support swap. And there you go. We got the kill now, because the Hathorn support for the flat damage reduction is only on the first combat, so that's now gone. So we're getting more damage in because less true damage reduction, so we can actually take her out this time. The contrast would have been to run something like Assassin Strike to try to counteract the flat damage reduction that she's getting, but Windsweep is what's here. And as you can see here, it's kind of close, but also not that close at the same time. But yeah, just wanted to show this one real quick. Alright, so here we go. This is our second match of the day. Let's see what we can do with this one. We're going to go with the Sita team. Really good attempt, or really good data from that last match in terms of just realizing what's going on with the matchup versus Rhea. I don't think you, like, personally, with my Rhea build, or if I'm going to use, when I did use her as a far save for SD, I removed the Scowl and gave her Sylvella and Shield just because, to remove the armor effective damage, and that makes her way more tankier, especially in the matchups against Micaiah. It improves her survivability there, and basically Chrom would have not done any damage in that situation there at all, because no armor effectiveness, so that's where the majority of his damage is coming from. So without that, Chrom wouldn't have been able to do any damage to that Rhea. So that's an option that you can use, especially in her bonus season, where she'll have those additional stats to just make her tougher to beat. You can definitely just drop the A skill and give her Sylvain. Is it Sylvain? I think it's Sylvain Shield. Whichever one it is. The one that's on Shurna. I think that's her name. To remove the armor effective damage. And that will just make it really impossible almost to take out Rhea. Unless you're bringing, you know, I don't know if it stacks. If the armor effective damage. Oh, well, I was going to say unless you're bringing Naga, but then I remembered that because of the Sothis partnership, she doesn't have the dragon effectiveness, so that doesn't matter. But I also don't know if it stacks, if the armor effective damage and the dragon effective damage stacks. It probably does, and it would be interesting to see exactly how much damage that would be, but I don't think there's any relevant dragon saves that we can test that on to see how much the damage outcome would be. But anyways, yeah, she's going to be really tanky. Definitely swap out that A skill for Sylveon Shield so that you can get more bulk out of her, especially in those matchups against Chrom, Micaiah, who are really the main threats. That's one of the reasons that Micaiah was given to us for this Hall of Forms, because they know that we're going to need that. It's really interesting how they're pushing Micaiah, kind of Micaiah, like, yeah, they've made her like intentionally really powerful so that we can have an option in this current meta. And I think that's, again, one of the big reasons that she was placed into the Hall of Forms, just so that we could get updated skills and stuff on her. But really, she doesn't need much aside from her refine and remix to, you know, put in work. But if you remove the armor effective damage, it's then infinitely more difficult for her to take out Rhea, because it's kind of hard for her to meet the res check against Rhea, and that's where a lot of Rhea's damage reduction comes from. You can also just run Miracle on your Micaiah. That's also an option, but then it depends on what the enemy team composition is. If they have Ather, then that's probably not going to work. But there are options to try to attack into her. It's just going to be really challenging, especially if she's well supported. So yeah, that's probably what I have already done it, but I don't think I'm going to be running Rhea as a far save. There's just so many other far save options that you don't really need to do that. I think,
Understood.
and it's not that she's bad, but they're just better far save options currently. She's really, really great at near saving. So if you're looking for a near saver, definitely pick her up if you haven't already, or just run her in that role. That's what she's been built to do. And then even, especially if you remove the armor effective damage for her in terms of being a near saver, it makes her like even better against matchups like Brave Chrom, who would still die in retaliation when she attacks anyways. But it's gonna make her even stronger. There just aren't that many melee units that can actually take her out. And yeah, that's probably, to summarize everything that I wanted to say about that matchup, just so that you have that information available to you. I went into that match knowing that I probably was going to lose, so I figured Chrom was the best option, because there's no way that I would have been able to tank that Hearthfogger once she did her rally, unless I try to double save it, but then I wouldn't have. The double save team, my save ball, does not have a way to take out any of those far saves or those armored units, so it wouldn't have worked out for me. This match right here, that was a big miscalculation on my part. I did not remember that the AoE would have hit Neathauger, and that's really what resulted in me losing there. Otherwise, Neathauger would have lived the Athos attack. So GG's again to my opponent. Yeah, we took another loss. So here is the final match for this week. We go into this one with the Gale Force team. I was kind of contemplating what approach to take for this. There are so many options. I could have just used Sita again, but Tana seemed to be the easiest one. We're going to be able to just warp up there and bop Robin here, who has, again, the weakest terrain. I was actually like looking back. I don't remember who it was, but someone told me exactly what Robin's water terrain does, and it is basically the flame terrain but upgraded, and it's a really nice upgrade. I don't know, maybe that's something they'll do in the future. They'll start incorporating status drops or more status effects into these terrains based on the unit that has it, which I think is actually a good way to keep the terrain effects relevant and unique to the unit that comes out with it. So you don't want everyone to just have the same type of terrain effect, unless you're like putting it in a skill like Third Sparrow, but you don't typically want everyone to just have the same terrain effect. Kind of like looking at the stone terrain, how the majority of the stone terrain, it's pretty much the same all across because it's just so good. But then when you look at something like the flame terrain, how do you change that? Especially if you're going to put that into a skill or a weapon. Thinking back to Winter Edelgard, how her pattern is different, at least to make it a little bit unique. If you were to put that on another unit, how would you implement that? And immediately I'm just thinking about the water terrain, and then the next conclusion is you would add stats to the flame terrain, some type of stat drops or something to make it even better on the next unit that you put it on. Not as a skill, but as a effect in the weapon. You would add stats to that. That could be on like an Edelgard alt or some other unit that has some type of, maybe Muspel. Maybe for Muspel you could combine the flame terrain and fatal smoke, and that would be really, really strong. So there's a lot of possible combinations that they've opened up room for with the introduction of these terrains, and I'd really love to see them expand on that, especially with the ice terrain, because currently it's like just not the greatest based off of what it does.
Will do.
As you can see here, I'm just warping right through it because there's gaps in it, which is why I prefer the one that Furum has, because it doesn't really have gaps. But even still, you can, break through that 2 turns. It's not going to last forever. And also, it's on a dual button. So, yeah, there's just so many combinations, especially with the water terrain. I was looking back at it in terms of, I was looking back at it just to see what it does, and after being told what it does in terms of like flat damage, DR halving, speed drops, and ranged calves can't move through it like flame terrain. It's actually very, very good. It's just on a bad unit. That's the only downside to the water terrain, and they need to find, well, more than likely they're going to put that on something else, a dual button or another unit that will make the water terrain a pain to deal with. Like, I can imagine them doing that similar to what they've done with Hector, and you really wouldn't want to deal with that, especially if it's on a save, because the save is going to get DR halving, your calves can't move through because it's there, your ranged calves, can't really move through, and if you combine that water terrain with something like the ice terrain, ooh, that's going to be really tough to deal with, because there aren't going to be, I don't think it would leave as many gaps as it does with the stone terrain. When you combine the ice terrain and the stone terrain, it leaves gaps that aren't really that beneficial to you. It's not a good combination, but I could see the ice terrain and like the water terrain, if you combine those two, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. Yeah, just thinking about it. But overall, a lot of potential there. Really excited to see what they do with that, especially if it's on like a dual button or something. I'm just really excited. Like when Legendary Corn gets his refine, that's going to be insane, combined with that the terrain effect. So that's just, again, something else to look forward to years down the road, at least for that. But yeah, kind of getting stuck here because Marnie's a good unit. Still, even to this day, with all the powerful nukes that we have, she does the job fairly well. It also kind of boils down to whether or not you're running those powerful nukes on your team. I think I heard someone point out something that Omni tanks are now becoming just melee nukes instead of being Omni tanks, since the Omni tank meta is like, that's something that I was looking at like my Marita for. Like, since she's just unable to tank something, why not just turn her into a melee nuke and have her blow stuff up and run away? And that's something that Ira has kind of introduced into the game, and I didn't actually pay attention to that. I was kind of just thinking, man, Ira's really OP, but then I still want to have my frontliners be frontliners like Desert Ike. But since they can't replicate that playstyle, the next best thing for you to do with them is to just turn them into melee nukes, which isn't like the greatest position for them to be in, since they don't innately have 3 movement, and you're giving them bonus movement, which can be crippled by stall or something like that. And then in comparison to calves, when they get bonus movement, it's 4 movement instead of 3. So they're just not going to be, infantry units are just never going to be able to match the range, but they still get a ton of stuff, and they're able to hit fairly hard, especially if you build them with skills that increase their damage output, like Assassin Strike, whatever that green one that Lynn has is called, I forget right now, Speed Taker, skills like that. If you build them like that, then they're more likely to have some type of use. I think that's the best way to use them right now, since they're just not going to survive the nukes that are currently in the meta, which is not something that I want to do. Like, I just kind of want them to be able to go back to Omni tanking. I don't know when we're going to be able to get back to that point in the game, but for right now, it still looks like I'm going to have to bench some of my favorite Omni tanks like Marth, Brave Marth, and Marita, Sundered Marita, stuff like that. I'm probably still going to have to bench them. But yeah, if you have those units, that's an alternative option that you could use. You could give them the skills to have them mimic that Ascended, that legendary Ira playstyle. Even though they won't do it quite as well, but it's at least something that you can do with them. They're not like the worst units anymore, even though they're still not where they want to be. It's kind of a bad spot for melee frontliners that are infantry, because unless they're attuned, they just don't have enough in their kits to be able to do stuff, which sucks. Unless you're Brave Felix, of course, then you can just do everything.
Close your eyes.
Yeah, I think it was, I don't remember, I think it was Eon who pointed it out, and I gotta agree with him. That's a very good point. I was watching his SD run, and he like cleaned that up in like less than an hour, like I want to say 55 minutes or something like that. It wasn't very long. He didn't take very long going through his SDS run this season. A lot of it was down to how incredible Ninja Diamant is. Yeah, he really put on a showcase with that Ninja Diamant, and kind of made me feel bad for fodder in my one copy. But he's just not my favorite. That's really what it boils down to. But yeah, Ninja Diamant, the crazy thing about him is just how fast he can get. Deceptively, his speed is kind of insane. In terms of just being able to outspeed units and being able to hit that quad. When he hits that quad, you're probably going to die. So, and I was saying that there aren't that many green units that you have to fill that role like what Brave Erica does. And he's actually one of them that can do it, but I just didn't invest into him. So shame on me for missing out on that. But I'm pretty sure they'll release something at some point, maybe with the next banner, the next seasonal banner, which is going to be spring. Maybe there'll be a green unit on there that's actually usable. So yeah, I'm just waiting on that. Something to give some competition to my Brave Erica, to my attuned Erica.
Let's enjoy this.
Yeah, this is kind of tricky right now. I'm not quite sure what to do here. We don't need the pot since this is the last match. I just gotta make sure that I figure out the correct order of things here. Kind of disappointing that Thor isn't able to take out this Lucina, but she is outside of her weapon condition, 25%. So she is missing some stats and some stuff, and not getting the guaranteed follow-up here is kind of bad. Worst case scenario, we will trap Ceros and just let her initiate, I guess. But Micaiah definitely has to go, so I'm just trying to work my way towards that. Yeah, but otherwise, it's been a really fun season. I do think I'm going to need to put some work into updating my Astra teams, especially the double save team, which every time I've looked at it to think of like using it, I've opted not to because of just damage output problems. I haven't figured out a way to incorporate a range unit onto that team that can actually do damage, so I might end up scrapping that team. The only reason that I haven't yet is, again, because I don't have a green unit aside from Brave Erica, who's already in late season, that I can put on that team. I was considering putting a Nell there, but I was like, I already have Sita here, and then if I'm putting Nell there, I probably would want to give her Null-C Echo. And I'm not like sold on that being a good fodder option just yet, because I don't know. I don't really want to. I don't really want to give Nell Null-C Echo because she's blue, and that's just another blue infantry frontliner that, yeah, I don't want to invest into another one. I already have Sita. I already have Gold Mary that I'm trying to invest in as well. And then there's also Tamara. So if anything, I'm probably going to focus on building Tamara. And then what else? If I'm gonna give Nell no counter disrupt echo, I might as well just use Desert Ike, who already has it built into his special, I think. So seems like a bad investment for me personally.
I'll handle this.
I was looking back at that banner, the desert banner. I feel like one of the reasons that Desert Ike was introduced was to give players that didn't pull specifically for that attuned Erica for the Null C Echo fodder, is to give them an option to use in light season. In the form of Ike, that's actually fairly bulky in terms of being able to survive against some of the common threats that we're currently facing in the meta. Blue for Felix, and a ton of flat damage reduction to help him out against Sigurd. So that's really why he was released. If he was green, it would probably have given him a worse matchup against
Let's enjoy this.
Felix, but I still think he could probably have pulled it off, especially with brave hits. But it makes sense why they went with blue for him. Unfortunately, I feel like Nell at least should have been maybe red. But I guess since we already got a red rearmed dragon, they didn't want to give us another one, which leaves green. But then if she was green, then she runs into the problem of dying to Ira, and Nell was kind of released to help us out with Ira. So
let's enjoy this.
I don't know, man. I'm still waiting on the green unit. I really was thinking that we'd have gotten one by now, a powerful green unit, not Winter Edelgard. I was thinking it would be armored, but not Valentine's Edelgard. I was thinking it would be ranged, but we haven't gotten a ranged unit ranged armor since I want to say Winter Claude. Oh, Hubert's. I'm not counting Hubert. Hubert does not exist. We're going to pretend that didn't happen. We're going to get an actual ranged Farsaith that's good at some point, I would hope. But yeah, we're...
Festival, huh?
I'm trying to pick the right option here. I think I'm probably going to go with Crom. Even though he's going to take a hit. But I think I'm going to go with Crom because Crom sometimes fails to take out Micaiah. And I'm pretty sure that Marissa won't fail me in that matchup. So, yeah, I'm probably going to go with Crom instead of Marissa there. Yeah, I feel like this week is actually like a turning point in the meta with the introduction of the Valentine's units, particularly Rhea. I feel like she is going to be a big impact in the meta moving forward. Kind of the same thing that we've had with most of the armored units on the Valentine's banners in the years that have passed. Except for that 1 year with Leon, Valentine's Leon. But yeah, I feel like with Rhea being a thing and the miracle effect, I don't think Roy is going to be the emblem unit at the end of March, because if he's going to have holdout, it kind of overlaps with what Rhea does, and I feel like they're going to give it some breathing room, some space before they release another effect that actually does, because it would essentially eliminate what Rhea does, or pose some type of competition to what Rhea does. Like, why run Rhea when you could just run an emblem ring? That would be the question. So I don't think we're going to get Roy just yet. I feel like we're kind of setting up to get a ranged emblem unit. More than likely, I'm feeling that it might be Micaiah. Just because that would be like a great way to end off this tanky far save meta that we're currently in. I feel like Emblem Micaiah would be a good solution to the particular problem that we currently have in the game. Blue, well, I actually don't know what the color schemes are. Maybe she could be on colorless or green. I could see that happening, even though we already have a green Micaiah. Red would be interesting because we do have a Hoshiden Micaiah that's red, but if we get a red emblem Micaiah, I think that would actually be a big deal, because there aren't any red nukes that are actually good. There aren't any at all that are good. I think maybe you can count Summer Goldwig, but that's really after the far save is gone. So if we get a red Micaiah, emblem Micaiah, I think that could be a really big deal for the meta. It would give her not a great matchup against blue Neathogger, but everything else should blow up. No, I think so. Especially for Mortis. I think that would actually be like a really good play on their part if they're planning to do that. But I don't know. Let's see what IS has in store. But I don't think it's going to be Roy because we already have the miracle effect in the game with Rhea. Luckily, it's not in player phase as well. But that's it, man. GG's.